Hi guys, it's Ms. Hal here coming at you with an awesome math tutorial. Hope all of you are doing well. As your math teachers, we want to make sure that you make an attempt at these problems before you go over it. So today I'm going to be going over Packet 4, Day 2. If you haven't done this already, go ahead and try it first before you watch this video. Let's get started. So problem number 1 states, change the mixed number to an improper fraction. 3 and 1/10. So just to kind of go over, an improper fraction is kind of the opposite of simplifying. So when we're going from a mixed number, that means you have a whole number and a fraction. So we're going to go from that to what you would have simplified this to. So the first thing I need you to do is I need you to rewrite the fraction. It's best to set up the fraction like this. We're going to use our method of Texas here. What that means is we're going to put a plus sign next to the 1 and a multiplication sign next to the 10. It makes it kind of look like TX for Texas. So your first step is going to be multiplying your whole number times your denominator. Remember that if a fraction has the same numerator as the denominator, that's a whole. So we're wanting to take 3 and times it by 10, which 3 times 10 is 30. From there, you're going to take that number and you're going to add it to the number of your numerator. So 30 plus 1 is 31. This number is now your numerator. Your denominator is going to stay the same as it was. So here I have a denominator of 10. My denominator here is also going to be 10. So changing 3 and 1/10 to an improper fraction will give you 31 over 10. For problem number 2, it says there are 12 boys who make the volleyball team. 25% of those boys who tried out for the team. How many boys tried out for the team? So here we're dealing with a percent and a whole number. It's a proportion. So when we have proportions, we set up a proportional window, as I have right here. Once your proportional window is set up, it's important then to label. So my first step is I'm going to label the top. I've always told my students the last column is percents and the first column is numbers. So we're going to put percent above the last column and number above the first column. Now going this way, we need to label what they are. Your bottom is going to be your totals. And your top's going to be the other thing that we're looking at. So we're looking at who made the team. So I'm just going to put made team. Now that you have your proportional window set up, it's time to fill in. So we look at the column and the row. So this first box is number that made the team. Do we know that? Yes. 12 boys made the team. So I'm going to write 12 in this spot. The one next to it is percent that made the team. So the percent that made the team was 25. So I'm going to write 25 in that spot. And that's what we have set up so far. Now your bottom is total. Do we know the total number? No, that's what we're looking for here. Do we know the percent total? Well, percent total is, unless stated otherwise, 100%. Once you have 3 out of the 4 boxes filled in, you can find your 4th box, which you use cross multiply, so you find where you can cross multiply. We can't cross multiply here because there's not a number here. So we've got to cross multiply 12 times 100, which 12 times 100 is 1,200. Your next step is going to be to divide by the number left over. So in this case, it's 25, so I'm going to divide by 25. We start dividing. 25 does not go into 1, so above the 1, I'm going to put a 0. 25 does not go into 12, so above the 2, I'm going to put a 0. Now 25 does go into 120. It goes into it 4 times. 4 times 25 is 100. We're going to subtract 100 from 120, and that leaves us with 20. From here, we're going to bring down this next 0. That now makes our new number 200. Now 25 goes into 200 8 times. 8 times 25 is 200. We have no numbers left, and we've gotten to a 0. So this is our new number, and that will go in place of this box. So my new number is 48. Now this tells me the total number that tried out. Going back and reading our question, how many boys tried out for the team? Total number, 48. So your answer is 48 boys. Moving on to question number 3. Question number 3 says use the percent proportion to solve what is 22% of 80. Now there's 2 ways that you can do this, and I'm going to show you both ways. The first way is you see proportion, you set up a proportion window. Label it again. Percents and number. Your bottom is going to be total. Now it might be kind of hard to figure out what we're going to label this one. And I'm just going to leave it kind of blank for now because we don't have a specific thing that this number is associated with. So we're going to try to fill in what we know. Do we know the total number? Well, our total number is 80. It's the number that was given to us. So we're going to put that as our total number. Total percent, as I told y'all, is 100. 100 goes in that box. And then the top percent box, we're going to put 22. Now from here, again, to find this empty box, which is what we're looking for, is 80 times 22. 0 times 2 is 0. 2 times 8 is 16. Add a 0 because you're moving over one spot. Let me show y'all what I've done so far. So now we've got to do 2 times 0, which is 0. 2 times 8 is 16. And we add those 2 numbers together. And you get 1,760. From there, we've got to divide by 100. Now, when you're dividing by 100, you just can move the decimal 2 places to the left. So there's no decimal here, so I'm going to place it at the end. And I'm going to move it 2 places to the left. Its new location is now between the 7 and the 6. So my answer is 17.6. And that's what I was looking for. Now, as I told you, I'm going to show y'all another way. When you're using a percent to find the percent of one particular number, remember, percent is this number out of 100. So that means that it's 22 out of 100. If I wrote that as a decimal, I would simply have to move the decimal place 2 places to the left, which would put it in front of that first 2. So it would be 0.22. I'm going to multiply that number by 80. So we have 80 times 0.22. So we start with 2 times 0, which is 0, and then 2 times 8, which is 16. We've multiplied all out of the one spot, so we're going to move down to the next spot, and remember to put that 0 in there. Now you can start multiplying. 2 times 0 is 0, and 2 times 8 is 16. Add those numbers together, 0, 6, 7, 1. If you notice here, we got the same number we got here. But here, we have decimals. Remember, the number of decimals in your problem equals the number of decimals in your answer. So I have 2. That means I need to have 2. So my answer is 17.6. And looky there. We got the exact same answer we did doing this way. So these are 2 different ways you can use to solve this problem. Now number 4, guys. Number 4 is actually the exact same problem as number 1. So if you needed help with it, go back and watch the part where we went over number 1. Number 5. Number 5 says, what is the area of a square with a side length of 1 1/2 centimeters? So remember the properties of a square. That means every side is equal. Using your formula chart, you'll find the formula for area of a square, which is area equals base times height. As you see, I've already written that down. Now we need to find our base and our height for this square. Once again, they're all going to be the same, so I'm going to end up filling in, plugging in. We don't know area, so it's going to stay A. Our base is 1 1/2 times our height, which is 1 1/2. Now I've got that set up. Now, it may be difficult to multiply a mixed number, but we can change this mixed number into an improper fraction, making it a little easier to multiply. Remember, to do that, we use Texas. So we multiply our whole number by our denominator, so 1 times 2, which is 2, and then you add that to the top. So our new area, our new length, base, is 3/2. Now that means that the same thing for our height is 3/2. Once you've written it out this way, we multiply fractions straight across. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 3, which is 9, and then multiply 2 times 2, which is 4. So our new fraction is 9/4. Now that's not simplified, so we need to simplify that. To do this, you've got to see how many times your denominator will come out of your numerator. So how many times does 4 come out of 9? You can do 4 times 4, that's 2 times, which is 8. So we have 2 wholes, and that leaves us with 1. 8 minus 9 is 1. So our answer is 2 1/4. This will work the same way if you change 1/2 to a decimal of 1.5. You should get the same answer in a decimal form. But remember, if it's as a fraction, we keep it as a fraction. Now number 6 is kind of a combination of a couple of those. It was a simple mistake, so just go ahead and cross through number 6. Okay, moving on to number 7. Number 7 says order the numbers from least to greatest. We have -94, -95, -90, and -98. As a reminder of how it works, I drew out a number line. Guys, remember whole numbers, they get bigger the bigger the number. But the 0 is almost like a mirror image. So the next number going this way is -1. So if these numbers are getting smaller, that means the larger negative number, 98, is actually smaller than these. So if we're going least to greatest with negatives, we need to look for the larger absolute value. That's going to be your smallest number. So if we're going from least to greatest, looking at our absolute values, meaning a number without the negative, 98 is larger. So it's actually the opposite. -98 is the smallest. So that's going to be our first number. Then going, the next largest absolute value is 95. So if it's got a negative in front of it, that means it's actually smaller. So that number is going to go next to the -98. Then again, absolute value, 94. Put the negative, it's actually smaller, leaving us with 90. And this should be your order from smallest to greatest. Breezing right through, we're going on to problem number 8. Number 8 says find the area of the circle. The radius is 5 meters. Use 3.14 as approximation of pi. Again, guys, you're going to have to go to your formula chart. Your formula chart will tell you area of a circle is A equals pi r squared. I've drawn out a picture for you. We have our radius, which is what's asked for in our problem, so we don't have to do anything there. But remember, when you're finding this, radius squared, that does not mean radius times 2. That means radius times radius. So we're going to rewrite it out. as area equals pi times r times r. Now from here, we're going to plug in our numbers that we know. We don't know the a, so it's going to stay a. We know pi is 3.14 times radius, which is 5, times radius, which is 5. Now since this was an exponent, we're going to start by multiplying those last two numbers. So 5 times 5 is 25. That's 25 is going to replace 5 times 5 because it's the same thing. Now we're going to multiply that by 3.14. Start with our ones place. 5 times 4 is 20. Put the 0 down, carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. And 5 times 3 is 15. And since there's no more numbers, the whole number comes down. Now we cross through our ones place. Once we've done that, we need to bring a 0 down. That tells us we're going to the next place value. Then we start multiplying. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. And 2 times 3 is 6. Now you're going to take those numbers and add them together. 0 plus 0, 0. 7 plus 8, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Put the 5, carry the 1. 5 times plus 2 is 7, plus 1 is 8. Carry the 1, and 1 plus 1 plus 6 is 8. So you should have gotten 8,850. Now, there are decimals up here. So that means we need decimals down here. How many numbers are behind the decimal up here? We only have 2, so we need to have 2 numbers behind the decimal down here. So our area equals 88.5. Don't forget your measurement, m, and it's squared since is area of a circle. On to number 9. Number 9 says, solve the equation below, show all your work. Now guys, remember with an equation, our first step is to draw a line down the equal sign. This shows us that we've separated. This side should equal the same as this side. So when we have a variable, we're going to box the variable and any sign in front of it. So I'm going to put a box around m with the negative sign in front of it. This tells us to hold off on this. What we're doing here is we're adding 25. To move that away from the m, we've got to do the opposite. So the opposite of plus 25 is minus 25. That gives me 0 and leaves me with negative m on that side. Now, if I do it to one side, to keep everything balanced, I gotta do it to the other. So, minus 25. Now here we have a negative 34 minus 25. Remember, this is pretty much saying two negatives. How do you combine two negatives? You simply add them together. So, 5 and 4 gives you 9, and 3 and 2 gives you 5. You're going to keep the sign of being negative. Now, you may think you're done, but guys, there's still a negative over here. To get rid of this negative, we've got to divide by something, but there's no number. So remember, if there's nothing in front of the negative and the variable, you're going to divide by -1. Dividing by 1 does not change the value, but doing the negative will change it from a negative to a positive. If you do it from one side, you got to do it to the other. So dividing negative m by -1 gives you positive m. And dividing negative 59 by -1, two negatives make a positive. So it is now 59. So m equals 59. Now if you plug this number in to this equation and solve it out, you should get negative 34. Let's go in and double check that. On to the last one, number 10. Number 10 says fill in the missing term in the pair of equations. Equivalent ratios. Now, guys, a ratio is just like a fraction, okay? We have 3 numbers here. They're proportional. Ratios are proportional. So guess what? We're going to use a proportional window. It's important, though, when you're setting this up that you look at the first one. So I have 36, 54. So what I'm going to do is in that first column, I'm going to put 36 on top and 54 on bottom. It's important that these numbers line up here. Now the next part, you've got to figure out where to put this 12. Well, you got to put it in the same order. So 12 was our first number here. So where did we put our first number here? We put it up top. So 12 has to go up top. You have your proportional window set up. Now we're going to cross multiply and divide. 54 times 12. Start with 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 5 is 10. We're moving over one place value, so we've got to drop a 0 into the next row. And then 1 times 4 is 4. And 1 times 5 is 5. Add those together. 8, 4, and 6. So you should have gotten 648. Now the last step is we're going to divide by 36. So 36, 648. 36 does not go into 6, so we're going to put a 0 above the 6, but it does go into 64. So above the 64, 36 actually only goes into 64 once. So we're going to put a 1 above the 4, and we're going to subtract 36 from 64. Okay, that should give you, you've got to borrow 6 out of 14 is 8. 3 out of 5 is 2, so it couldn't go in anymore. Bring down that other 8. So now how many times does 36 go into 288? We're going to make an educational guess, and I'm going to say I think it goes in 8 times. So 36 times 8, let's see if I'm right. 8 times 6 is 48. Carry the 4. 8 times 3. 24 plus 4 is 28. Looky there, it goes in exactly. So that 8 is going to go above the other 8. Subtract it out, we're left with 0. So that means 36 goes into 648 18 times. That's our missing number, and that'll go in place up here. And that's how you solve the problems on Packet 4, Day 2. Hope everyone's doing well. We miss y'all, and I'll see y'all next week.